Welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jonno White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jonno White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Today's guest is Darren Moffatt. Darren is the Director for Strategy and Content at Webbuzz and is based in Sydney, Australia. I'm up in Brisbane in Australia, so I always love having a chat with people from all around the world, but particularly those who are based in Australia as well. So Darren, great to chat with you. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, g'day, Jonno. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So first of all, for our listeners, can you give everyone a bit of an overview of who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, I am a middle-aged white male living in Sydney, Australia, and I do a couple of things. I'm a bit of a sort of a mongrel breed. I've got a finance business which I've had for about 15 years, which is called Seniors First, and that does reverse mortgage finance for people over 60, and that's pretty successful. And that was my first business, and then I over a period of probably 2 or 3 years, I taught myself online marketing to grow that business out of necessity. And around 2012, 2013, that led to other people asking me, can you help? And spawned a whole other business called Webbuzz, which is a digital marketing agency.
Yeah, incredible. And what does a day in the life of Darren in Sydney look like?
Well, it's pretty busy, but most people are busy these days, so there's nothing special about that. But I think maybe a couple of quick highlights. It is pretty diverse. I have to chop and change from different roles and functions each day. So with the Seniors First business, it's more sort of top level strategic. I've got good people in that business. I don't need to be hugely operational in that business, but in the agency business, it's really quite operational and hands-on. And I'll go from doing, creative work for a client to, maybe managing, developing a strategy, managing some staff, rolling out new projects. It's a very diverse experience, and it's you've got to be very good at time management. And often at the end of the day, I do feel a little frazzled sometimes, but it's never boring, is what I can say.
I think everyone can resonate with that. So it'd be great to find out a bit more about your story. So we'd love to hear some of the moments that really shaped you becoming the leader and the person you are today, Darren. Feel free to go back as far as you want.
Okay, well, I can actually share a little story with you from when I was a child. I don't want to bore people to tears, but I do recall this, it's reasonably interesting. So when I was about probably 8 or 9, I was in the Scouts, and I was on a Scout trip, camp or something, and it wasn't just our troop, there was a bunch of other troops. And I remember we were given an activity. We all had to kind of sit down in groups and build a village out of sticks and stones and whatever we could find, so we had to kind of build like a little village. And I distinctly remember at that point, it was supposed to be a collaborative exercise, but I remember at that point that the people that I was collaborating with just weren't doing it the way I wanted to do it, so I went off and built my own village. And that's a little bit of a metaphor for what's happened, I guess, later in life. I mean, I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I love collaboration and I do enjoy working with other people, but I've always had a fairly strong vision for the way I want to do things. And so, yes, I do remember doing that as an 8 or 9-year-old and thinking, is that normal? It might be a bit strange behaviour, but anyway, it is what it is.
That's a great story. Entrepreneur from a young age. What about as you grew older?
I've got another one too, actually.
Yeah, please go for it.
Well, I can give you another quick one that I remember when I was much younger, when I was about sort of 5 or 6, first year at school, second year at school, tops. And I remember organising children in the playground, putting them into groups, and you'll do this, you'll do that for some sort of made-up game or something. And again, that's carried over into real life. So it's an interesting sort of nature versus nurture question, really, isn't it? Because a lot of people listening to this podcast would have similar events in their past, in the sense that there'd be things in their early childhood that they could remember that seem to be repeated as patterns of behaviour throughout their life. And so it really does get to the point, well, how much of it is just encoded in your genes and how much of it is learned behaviour? So it's a fascinating question. And it's obviously different for different individuals.
Yeah, it is, and but you're right. That's why I love hearing people's stories, because you always find out where, for some people there was something that was very natural in their gifting that just was, and it was quite organic, even though it's often not linear. But then others really pivot and go, I need to chase this, and that's where some doors open for them. So for you, as you did get older and particularly, I'm always interested in that moment where, whether it was in teenager 20s, was there a moment where that was very pivotal for you at that sort of age in terms of taking the path you've taken as an entrepreneur?
That's a good question, Jonno. Yes, I can give you a good example of that. So, parallel to my sort of working career, I played in bands for many years, and in my 20s, I managed or co-managed the band that I was also playing in, and that was probably the first real time that the sort of entrepreneurial streak kind of manifested, if I can put it that way. And in that group, I organised with the co-manager. It was the two of us that was driving it. We actually organised a tour to London. We got some money out of the Australia Council, and we went over to the UK, and we had our song played on the radio over there, and we did 5 shows over in London, and that really took a lot of what you would call leadership, setting the strategic path, having a plan, implementing the plan, organising people, dealing with stakeholders, and that was an incredibly powerful experience, because putting something on like that, and it ultimately ended in terrible failure, which I can share with you in a minute. But putting on something like that and getting all the way over there, it really does send a message to your subconscious that, oh wow, I can make stuff happen. So yes, managing bands in my 20s, it would probably be the key experience there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. Because I have my own story of being in a band, and when I was 17, 18. And funnily enough, I just discovered it over here in Australia. We have Triple J, which is our sort of local radio meant for sort of younger people, young adults sort of age, maybe would be the sort of target. And one of our band members must have put our songs up on Triple J Unearthed. And so I stumbled across that yesterday, and it was like, whoa, this is a blast from the past. And we didn't travel internationally. That's incredible that you guys went over to London. That's amazing. But I'm keen to hear the rest of that story. So what happened for you as a member of that band, as the manager, and like you mentioned, the failure that followed the trip to London?
Yes. Oh, it is a good story, actually. I've told this story a few times over the years, and it demonstrates a bunch of key things, actually. So what happened was, we had a lot of interest from record companies in London, and at that time our sound was very similar to Radiohead. So this is back in the very late 90s, and Radiohead was a massive band, and we sounded and looked a bit like them. So people were record companies were after the next Radiohead. And we had really generated all this interest, and our song was getting played on XFM in London. And I remember hearing it on the radio as we were driving around in the tour bus, like the second day or so after we arrived, and it was incredibly exciting. But here comes the but. The smart thing to do when you're doing a tour is you do a warm-up show off Broadway, so to speak. So you do a warm-up show that no one important goes to, and you blow out the cobwebs, make the mistakes, all that kind of stuff. And we didn't do that. We instead had all the A&R people, the record companies, at the very first show. And unfortunately, the very first show was the worst show of the tour. And I broke a bass string, and the singer was really not having a good night. We were a bit awkward. We were nervous as hell. And, we literally watched those record company people kind of just leave, so it was quite disheartening. And then, we ended up playing some killer shows after that. But, of course, by then it was too late. And ultimately, the band then imploded. So people just went, "Oh, stuff this," and it was all over. So, that's what happened. And it was a great lesson because, very disappointing. But one of the lessons there is do your homework, be prepared. War game, think about, all the different contingencies that might occur and how to manage them. And the other learning I took out of it is that even in the midst of that failure, I remember standing on the station at a train station in North London called Mill Hill, and telling my fellow band member that I was going to go off and start another band and do something different. It was going to be better, and that's what I did. So yes, even in the midst of failure, it can often provide the path forward and also the motivation to go off and achieve something else.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. You can always hear in a story like that, there's still a bit of pain in sharing that. But I love the similarity to another podcast I did with someone recently who talked about what they learned. They had this big learning in a school. It was a school leader saying that they tried to roll out this big new curriculum across their whole school in one hit. And they went, oh my goodness, they had all these sort of teething problems. And it sort of blew up, and they realized now what they've learned from that is when they're going to do something that's significant, they do what you said, right? The off-Broadway, test it, get it right before you really bring in the stakeholders. And it's just funny that the same leadership lesson in a school with curriculum is really something that I guess you went through and learnt in a band on the other side of the world in London. So appreciate you sharing that story. As we fast forward to your career leading in a business sense, are there any moments with Seniors First or with the digital, with sort of the digital marketing you do? Are there any really pivotal moments over this season that come to mind as a leader?
As a leader,
or as an entrepreneur as well?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, I mean, I would think the GFC in 2008, 2009, that was a real eye-opener. So by that point, I'd been running the Seniors First business for a couple of years, and I got it up and running. It was my first business, and I got it up and running pretty quickly. It was doing really quite well, and I had about 10 staff, and it was really steaming along. And then when the GFC happened, it sort of completely messed with the business model and the supply. So there were about 20 lenders in the market at that time offering reverse mortgages. And then within the space of 3 months, that had gone down to 4. And it just, all the financial model completely changed. So at that point, I was spending a fair bit of money on radio advertising every month.
Wow.
And I just realized, if I keep doing this, I'm going to go broke. Because it's difficult for people who were younger who weren't directly in the finance industry to maybe understand what it was like. And it literally, the GFC was a, oh my God, what's going to happen moment. There was the fear of the unknown, and it was very difficult to get through that. But yes, I just realized very quickly I had to completely change the business, change the model, change the way that we did the marketing, and went into a bit of a holding pattern for a while, just out of necessity. And then it was probably around 6-7 years ago that things started to pick up again on the supply side. So some new lenders were coming into the market, and that was the signal for me to go, right, okay, it's time to amp this up and really hopefully, get this back to where it was and beyond, and it has done that. So it's now, we've got 7 or 8 staff, and it's really doing very well, and we've got an excellent name in the market, and so yes, I think the lesson there is you need to be able to pivot, you need to be able to adapt to the market conditions, and also take the long view. So sometimes in the moment it will feel like it's overwhelming, and the fear can kick in, but I try to take the long view wherever possible and go, well, look, this is only a day, this is only a week, whatever it might be, we'll get beyond this. And sure enough, that business now is 15 years old, and it's doing pretty well. So yeah, that would be an example in the finance business.
Yeah, that's incredible. I can only imagine that's one of those moments where that's all happening around you, and that must have been such a reality check to go, okay, the landscape in this business and industry has just completely changed.
Well, I can give you one very visceral example that's been sort of etched into my brain.
Yeah.
My daughter was born. My first child was born in that year, and I remember coming home from the hospital. So obviously my wife and the child were still at the hospital. I came home to have a shower and get some sleep before going back to the hospital. And when I checked my emails, it was that particular day that a couple of the lenders had sent me email saying, sorry, we're out of this market. We're not doing business anymore. And I just, it was, one of those bittersweet moments. It's like, wow, it's a brilliant, amazing day, birth of my first child. And then I get 2 emails from very important suppliers saying we're out of the market. And so, yeah, funny times.
That's a roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster.
So one thing we were chatting about before we pressed record is around marketing, and obviously with the digital marketing agency and the work you do there. But I'm really interested in what you were saying around the future of marketing, and where you think, for those listening, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're people who have their sort of day job but are wanting to do something on the side, or leaders who want to understand more about marketing, because at the end of the day, that's really one half of the coin, isn't it? If you can have an organization that's bringing in and generating quality leads and attracting people to you, everything else, I feel like it's one of the biggest challenges. So yeah, feel free to unpack a bit around where you feel like some of the future of marketing lies, Darren.
Yeah, thanks, John. I know that this is I think it's a really interesting topic to talk about. So my hypothesis is that the next big marketing channel is online courses. So for entrepreneurs and business owners, particularly those who work in service-based businesses, online courses are the next big thing. So what I mean by that is that, let's say you're an accountant, or you're running an accountancy firm, and you're trying to reach that SME market, say between 500K turnover and $10 million turnover, right? That's a very contested market. It's very competitive. There's a lot of people out there competing for that market. And a lot of the usual channels are completely flooded. So LinkedIn is a wonderful platform to advertise on, but it's very saturated. And you can say similar things about most of the other channels. So if you're on a saturated channel, you can become commoditized, and that means that the differentials then come down to price or brand often. Now, what an online course does is it positions you as the leading expert. So not just an expert, but the leading expert in a particular niche of your offer. So for instance, if part of what you do is, say, self-managed super funds, and you have a course on that, you can see the value of that. Currently there's very, very few business owners and entrepreneurs out there who are using courses as essentially a lead generation source or a lead magnet, and that is a massive opportunity. And so to really capitalize on that opportunity and actually bring that to market, we're developing a platform called Nerd to Business. So we've already got a podcast called Nerd to Business, but we're converting it into an online course platform where the business owners and entrepreneurs can potentially create a course and have that marketed as a way to differentiate them in the market.
Yeah, that's amazing. I completely agree, because exactly what you're saying, the differentiation, and it's one of the reasons I love podcasts so much, is I can, and what I love doing on this podcast is chatting with people around leadership, knowing that letting people behind the curtain, so to speak, in terms of what's not that much of a secret. Most people are trying to grow their businesses, aren't they? But with clarity, I'm fully aware that I have to find a way for people who are going to work with me to coach them or do offsites, or there needs to be somehow, we need to go from they've never heard of me to me being the obvious person that they really believe can help them. And that's what I love about online courses. You have the ability to put something together that gives great value, but also at the same time, it takes someone on a journey where often they're spending a lot of time with you as the expert through the course, which is often a great lead generation tool. Not only a great opportunity for revenue because you do it once and then it's done, but also for your maybe high ticket items for a service business. It means that maybe 5 out of 100 people who do that course go, actually, this has helped me so much that I need to seek this person out to do the next step. And so I tend to agree. I think it's definitely one of the best ways moving forward that you can create value, and also the fact you do it once rather than doing the same meetings over and over again, telling the same advice. You do that once, record it, and really do it well, and then it's done, and you can help people again and again without needing to lift a finger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's evergreen courses, and yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's a brilliant way for potential customers to get to know you. But having put together a bunch of these courses now myself, and we're now providing that service to businesses. We're sort of not only will they be able to get on the platform, but some people have course ideas or requirements where they don't want them to be public. That might be an internal course for staff or something like that, whatever it might be. The point that I was going to make, though, is that putting such courses together is a real challenge, and it's not just about filming. It's not just about putting it on some sort of platform or getting it online. The real challenge is in laying out the content. It's in structuring the content down into modules and short lessons. There's a real trend these days towards what's called micro-learning. So all the research shows that people these days with short attention spans and screen time and all the rest of it, they learn better if the lessons are in really small bite-sized chunks, like 10 minutes, yeah? So you've got to be able to kind of map the content out, visualize it, structure it, script it, storyboard it. As you can see, all this work happens before you even get to filming. Filming is a challenge in itself. There's a question there around performance. So whoever's going to be the instructor, they have to develop pretty good presentation skills. So that's a component that needs to be worked on.
Which is partly different to face-to-face, right? Like there's probably some different skills you need to be thinking about. Would you say?
Oh, very different. It's a very different skill set, and and to be frank, not everyone's up to it. Like it's. I'm talking with someone at the moment about helping them put a course together, and this particular person just doesn't want to be in the videos. So it's her business. She wants the course. She needs the course, but she just doesn't want to be the presenter. So in her case, we'll outsource that function. We'll get a professional presenter to actually be on screen. But yes, there's just so many variables, and it's a really big job. So this is an interesting opportunity because I do believe it's the next marketing channel. The interest in this is really growing for businesses, but it's a big problem. You know, it's like, who do I turn to? How can I produce all of this content? How can I make this course actually really good and not just another boring, you know, fluffed up PowerPoint presentation? So,
Yes.
so yeah, there's a real skill in putting it all together. But for those that can, or they can get the help from someone like us to do it, then the opportunity is massive.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's a couple of different ways that I look at it, and I see the big opportunity for those listening, maybe going, how might this work for me in terms of an online course? The first one is to take, you know, your best, what's the piece of content, what's the idea, what's the, you know, that people, their eyes light up about that, or you just have a trend where that just goes crazy as something that you do for people. What's the really obvious one? And if you can turn that into a course, yes, there's an upfront investment to do all of that, and or to get someone to help you do all of that. But then once it's done, you've turned a lead generation tool, which at the moment might be might be something you can give them a PDF or a video, but you take it to another level. You can make it quite an affordable entry point, but it's priced so people, you know, are actually putting their money in to say, yes, I'm a qualified lead, and they spend that time with you. And then suddenly, if you can find a way to create ROI on your marketing of that and actually market it and have enough money coming in to at least break even, you've got this incredible lead generation tool. But then the other opportunity is the really high ticket. And that's what I love about your approach. When you're thinking through that in that much detail, you can put some really amazing high ticket, high value content together that really solves a unique problem for people that they have. And once again, it's easy to look at the cost of working with an organization like yours and go, oh, it's an investment. But that's exactly what it is. It's an investment. And then once it's done, if that's truly helping people, that's the real game changer, I think. And that's why I love your approach around doing this, is that you do it once and then it works for you over and over again. And I feel like it takes a bit of a mindset change, though. That's definitely something I've found approaching this sort of thing.
It does. That's a very good point you make. It is a mindset change, and it's you know, there's a leap of faith that goes into this because it's a relatively new form of marketing. It's a reasonable investment of money, but especially time, right? Like if you're going to do this, you've really got to put some time into it. It's that you're essentially trying to monetize your knowledge. So an aspect of the knowledge and expertise that you've developed in your subject matter, you're monetizing it by creating course content. So to some extent, you can't outsource that. I mean, there are parts of it you can outsource, like in terms of production and content planning and so on. But you know, you as the business owner or the entrepreneur still have to take that knowledge out of your mind and put it into writing in a PowerPoint, or you know, we've got various templates and processes we use to facilitate that. But yes, it is an investment of time. But the question I would ask, if people are listening to this and going, interesting, but I'm not sure I can, you know, I can afford the time, or I want to make that investment. The question I would ask is, who else do you see around you in your competitors doing that? There's virtually no one doing this at the moment. That's why it's a greenfield opportunity.
True, right? Differentiation, isn't it?
If you're the first, it's massive. If you're the first financial planner specializing in maybe managing a divorce, you know, for women or something, and you do a course aimed at women and how to navigate the treacherous financial waters of separation and divorce. Where's that course online at the moment? I can't find it anywhere, right? Like there's nothing. That's what I mean. Anything you can imagine that people are searching for services, there's a course that could be created for it. That's how big this opportunity is.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very exciting. And so as we sort of wrap up, where can people find you, particularly if they are wanting to get started on something like that? How do they how do they drop you a line? Where can they find you on online, LinkedIn, etc.?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways they could get to me. Nerds of Business is the podcast, and that'll be the course platform, so they could just look that up. Or webbuzz.com.au. They could come through that. There's not too many Darren Moffats out there, so if you just Google me, I've got a fairly large digital footprint. So one way or another, people will get to me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Well, this has been so helpful, and I love the chat we've had around courses. For listeners, I know there'll be a bunch of you out there who I've been wondering, how do I differentiate my small business or even larger organizations? We've tried 5 things now, and nothing's really differentiated, and that might have been a real game changer for you. Don't forget, for our listeners, we also have the Jonno White Leadership Podcast, where I give you different tips on how to cast vision and build a high performance team, and leadership question of the day with a different question every day to put a stone in your shoe. But I want to finish today by saying a big thank you to Darren for being so generous with your time, telling really telling us that soul story about your time over in London with the band, and such a great leadership lesson from that story, and just being a joy to chat with about all things marketing and leadership. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Darren.
Thanks, Jonno. No, I've really enjoyed the chat, and congratulations on the podcast. And I hope it continues to grow and to get out there. And I'm always a big supporter of people who take the step to create content that helps educate. So well done.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me. Well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 Questions on Leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, and it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, Jonno White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out Jonno White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.